beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And, today we're about calling out the human things when they happen and knowing that it's maybe a sacred moment when this is happening the whole time you're trying to sing. What do you do when the world's falling apart? And I don't need it. It's not notes. If it was my notes, I'd be panicked right now. I'd have the same look that Michael Prince had. It's like, I need that lyric. The reality is human stuff happens, doesn't it? And what do we do when we're in our humanness, knee-deep in our humanness? I give it to a power and a presence, something so powerful and magnificent. And I give it to you as well. That I come before the altar of community. I come before the altar of family, and I say, I give it to you. I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to pretend. This is the way I was created. This is the experience I'm having. These are your emotions that I'm having. And we share them together. And we come to the place where we recognize our oneness, not necessarily only through spirituality, which is vitally important, but through our humanness as well. Today, there's a few people that are going to come up, and they're going to share from a very human standpoint. And I'm asking you to be okay with that, because there's healing there. There's God there. And sometimes the human emotions is the very portal we need to find that presence of light. As a foundation for the house that we're going to build today, I'm going to tell an old story that you've probably heard, but it's really important to tell today. Many, many years ago, there was a monastery in a far-off ancient land. And at the center of the monastery was a magnificent golden Buddha statue. It was huge. It was enormous. And it was gold, pure gold. Well, word came to the monastery that a neighboring army from another country was going to be invading. And they knew that if that golden Buddha was found, it would be destroyed. It would be melted down and be lost forever. And so they devised a plan. And they went and got mud and water and sticks and stones and began to cover the exterior of that golden Buddha, covering every square inch of it until at last it looked like nothing but a very plain, ordinary, boring statue at the center of the monastery. Well, the army did invade, and the plan worked. They didn't give a second look to the very ordinary statue in the center of the monastery. Well, years went on, many, many years. Generations came, generations went, over and over and over again, and eventually the army left the occupied land. Unfortunately, there was nobody left in the monastery that remembered the true golden nature of the Buddha. To those that were left, it looked just as plain and simple as it had looked to the invading army. Until one day, a young monk was sitting at the foot of the statue, and he was meditating. And upon rising, he leaned into the statue and just broke a small piece of that exterior off and exposed just enough. There was a hint of gold underneath. He could see just a hint. He knew that something must be in there. And so before long, he had asked the entire monastery to work around the clock with hammers and chisels to begin to chip off that exterior, to once again expose the golden nature of that Buddha as it was restored to its original splendor and magnificence. Now, this is a true story, and that Buddha statue stands today in the Temple of the Golden Buddha in Bangkok, Thailand. Today, we're going to talk about how that story plays out in our lives. We have human experiences. We have relationships. We have difficulties. We have darknesses. We have things that happen emotionally, mentally, physically that happen to us. And as we are not staying awake, what can happen is layer upon layer gets put upon us. You see, we were created in the image and after the likeness of gold, of harmony, of light, of joy. You were created in original perfection. And on our human journey, as we walk through this human earthly experience, sometimes things get placed upon us unwillingly, unconsciously. A belief system hits our path. Somebody tells us something about ourselves. We take it on as our own. We take a belief system and just make it our own, and little by little by little, our goldenness is covered up. And there's a danger. There is a danger in not paying attention to what's going on. Because there can come a time when the last bit of goldenness is covered up. Oh, it's still there. It is absolutely still there. It cannot go away. It is absolute in its nature. It is who you truly are. But layer upon layer of the stuff of life gets put on us. You know, our master teacher Jesus, that was his whole ministry, was to go around and find the people that had been covered up with belief systems, covered up with experiences, and say, I still see your goldenness in you. I still behold the Buddha, the Christ, the light, the magnificence that's there, even if you cannot see it for yourself. But those of us who walk the human journey, something can happen. When that goldenness is forgotten for too long, it can be a very depressing, sad, dark, and lonely world. Anybody experience that at all? Yeah, it's real. Depression is real, and I think that depression has gotten a bad rap, and that what we've done to try to fix depression, as if there's something broken, has cheapened it, has lessened it, and been a falsehood. There are those that say that depression is a sign of weakness. Nothing could be farther from the truth. There's those that say that depression is a lack of faith. And so we rush in to espouse and affirm spiritual ideals in the midst of it as if that person just needs a little bit more faith. Nothing could be farther from the truth. There are people that say, well, just choose differently. Make a different choice. We're all about choice and unity, aren't we? Let me affirm away the darkness of your human experience. You know, there are people that come to me on a regular basis, and this breaks my heart, that say, I kind of quit coming because I was in a dark night of the soul, and I felt like I couldn't come hang out at Unity North because it's all puppy dogs, rainbows, peaches and cream, and a bed of roses. You know, at an absolute nature, it is. It is perfect at the absolute realm of your existence, at the divine essence of your existence, but we're having a human journey, and sometimes we forget it is important to be spiritual and human. Some of us become so spiritual we're of no earthly good. I want you to hear that. We are both and today we're going to spend some time acknowledging the human part of ourselves. There's an article, Deanna and I write an article for Conscious Living Journal, and it felt like these words were appropriate today before I invite our guests to come up and forward. Consider for a moment that the often heard phrase, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, has inadvertently created an unhealthy divide. Many who play in the realm of metaphysics run the risk of developing an undercurrent of subconscious belief that there is something more sacred or holy about one part of our being than another. Your humanness is holy. The emotions you're having are not an accident. They matter. And it is equally important to spend time there. It seems at times that our relative existence and our human ego are too easily discarded as insignificant. This consciousness creates an unrealistic desire for perpetual positivity that manifests as ungrounded and superficial affirmations. What if being fully human and fully divine at the same time was not only possible, but necessary? What if it was not only necessary, but unavoidable? Breathe that in for a second. You're not here by accident. You don't have human experiences by accident. You are where you are. You're feeling what you feel. And perhaps you feel very covered up in that moment. And sometimes when you come to Unity North, it feels like they don't want to spend time in my humanness. They want to drag me, kicking and screaming, to the golden Buddha of my nature. But the reality is the people who are experiencing completely covered up have forgotten that goldenness. So it makes no sense to them. It is important as spiritual seekers, as friends, as community, as family, that we meet each other at a certain place before we go to the upper room. Jesus met people at the level of their humanness. He sought them out at the level of their humanness before he called out the divinity. You can go ahead and clap. Who's clapping? I behold the humanity of you, whoever clapped. Thank you for that. You see, soul retrieval, how many have heard about soul retrieval? My daughter and I and our family was going through a very, very difficult, dark point in our lives as a family. And somebody said, go see a shaman. And I went to a shaman who talked about soul retrieval. Shamans believe that just like when there's a car accident, a part of your body shuts down to protect it, it goes into shock. Well, when you have traumatic experiences, difficult experiences, that the soul does the same thing. A part of your soul gets set aside to protect it. to remember, and a layer gets put on. And the shaman taught us that unless you go back and reclaim that soul, that piece of your soul, you never come back into your fullness. There must be a willingness to go back, regroup, revisit, and grab that piece of your soul. But they were clear in their instructions to me. You cannot return to the spiritual body unless you're willing to spend some time in the mental body, the emotional body, the physical body are avenues through which we discover the Golden Buddha again, the Christ of our very being. But so many of us are walking the planet in metaphysics, pretending it's not hot, and not having the experience, and then one by one, the people who are having a human experience no longer feel welcome. I want you to know, first and foremost, that you are welcome in my heart to be a human being. I will never, ever give up my ability, as the Christ demonstrated, to behold the goldenness of your soul. But I will meet you at the level, and we will walk hand in hand, heart to heart, through whatever we need to walk, that your soul may be retrieved, that your soul may come back into alignment, and mine might come back into alignment. We're going to get real today. We're going to get very real. This talk was the result. I love that there were butterflies. Pretty, I've heard it said that talking to somebody about depression is often like talking to a person who is colorblind and telling him how beautiful the world is with all the colors. They've forgotten it. You can't meet them there. And so the reason we're doing this talk today is a very good friend of mine and a longtime member of this congregation, Deanna Fleenor. There she is. I was going to panic because I need you up here for the next part. Called me and said, I want to get real with my family. She's somebody who came to me and said it was really tough to be here sometimes because it felt like she was the oddball out, that she couldn't talk about what she was experiencing, and she's been through hell and back. And I said, you know what? We're not having this dialogue by accident. It's up in the community. And so we're going to have a dialogue about these things and find ways that we can come back into wholeness. So it's a bit of a soul retrieval today. So Deanna Fleenor here is a very beautiful and courageous soul. So Deanna, this is going to be kind of interview style. Deanna, who are you and why are you here?
My name is Deanna. And I've been a member of Unity since 1991. And I went to Unity after growing up as a Southern Baptist. And the reason why I found Unity and it resonated with me is because the blame and shame was not there in the services like I had been raised with. And for about 5 years, I didn't go anywhere because I didn't feel connected at all to the messages. So I started coming to Unity then and have done all kinds of seminars and classes and self-help books. I mean, I should have a PhD in it because I've done a lot of things over the years. But I faced a dark night of the soul recently, and I felt like, because I'd never heard a message like this on Sunday in any church about how it is to work through that and love yourself in the time that you're going through that. So,
what are some of the things that you went through?
Well, I had back surgery, major back surgery that required recuperation time for quite a while, and I was on some opioids for the pain, and I really needed that medication to get through the pain because it was excruciating. And what I found myself doing was I got dependent on the drugs, and so I was taking them more than I should have taken them, and it put me into a depression, serious depression, and I also used alcohol as a way to escape. And so when I finally broke was about 2 years ago in July. I was seeing a therapist at the time, and the first session he said to me, and I've been to therapy before, so I didn't expect this though. He said, have you considered suicide? And I said, yes. And he said, have you told anyone? Have you told Bill? And I said, no. And he said, do you have a plan? And I said, yes. And he said, when do you have a date you're thinking about doing this? And I said, July 4th, Independence Day. And that was 2 years ago. And he wanted me to go on antidepressants, and I really resisted it. I have resisted that for a while, even though I tend to have depression over the course of my life. But I'm like, there was something about that was weak, that wasn't unity. And trust me, if I could own the depression, the sadness away, I would have done it a long time ago. And so I acquiesced to doing that. And I also had therapy like 7 days straight for at least an hour. I mean, it was intense therapy, and he was convinced that I needed to be inpatient during the week of the 4th of July. And I was like, I'm not going. I do not want to go into Ridgeview. I refuse, I wore a cute outfit. I was, I looked good on the outside, and I was like, I ain't going.
So I want to pause there for a second. I wore a cute outfit. I put the face on. Nobody knew. I could hide so beautifully, and a sense of isolation began to emerge because nobody knew what was going on. You weren't leaning into anybody. And a couple of things I want to highlight as to what Deanna said. It is not weak to ask for help. And God shows up. If there is one power, one presence in, through, around, and as all creation, that God is showing up. And sometimes it looks like an antidepressant. And it's not weak to take a pill, although our human ego will invest in that and say, oh, you're less than. There's something wrong with you. You're not broken. It's the truth.
So he had scheduled, with my permission, he had scheduled a time to talk to my internist, who is also concerned about me. And Bill was at the session with me, and they both convinced me that I needed to be inpatient. And so I agreed to that. I went straight with the clothes on my back. Bill took me over to Ridgeview, and I was inpatient there for 5 days straight, locked up in the adult psych ward, and it was very rigid there. It was a great place to heal. They made us not isolate, which is one of the things that a depressed person wants to do, is we want to isolate. We feel safer if we're just by ourselves. And, you don't want to put yourself out there and be judged when you are really judging yourself,
So that's a vicious cycle and a vicious circle that she's talking about there. Anybody can resonate with that? You're feeling something you're not supposed to feel. You feel isolated, and what do? You isolate yourself. It's a vicious, vicious cycle. And if you want to know the power of community, it's when that isolation takes over and that monster wants to grab a hold of you. That's the time when you need to be with people like the people in this room and lean into those people the most. Our master teacher, Jesus, felt that same way. He was about to say to his loving Father, take this cup away from me. Take it away. I cannot do this. And he wanted to isolate. But what did he do? He went to the level of the Christ. And I found this scripture in Matthew. I love this scripture. I don't know why I've missed it. This is our master teacher, our way shower, and our great example. And he took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee. That would be James and John. He began to be very sorrowful and very, very heavy. And then he said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful. Jesus was sad, perhaps depressed. And he says, even unto death. I'm so sad that I am dying. Tarry here with me and watch with me. The Christ leaned into his closest confidants, leaned into the people that were there and said simply, don't give me a fix. Don't give me a magic pill. Hold vigil with me. Be present with me. Be my brother, and let's walk through this together. The time when the isolation monster hits is the time you need to reach out.
Yes, and so one of the, do I talk about the tailspin?
You
or
can
what
talk
else?
about yeah, I mean, so what are some of the things that happened when you go to this dark night of the soul that I think we can all resonate with? What happened for you?
Well, I was almost, I would say that I was catatonic. I couldn't function. I couldn't do anything. I would just look out the window and, you know, be with my thoughts, but not be able to express anything. And so some of the things that I did over the course of time was, of course, I went through Ridgeview, and Ridgeview has a really good outpatient program as well, and I did that for 5 weeks after I was inpatient. And then I started looking around for some 12-step program to attend, which I'd never really done before. I'm 62, and I'd read, and I hadn't done any, you know, like intensive, you know, AA or anything like that to speak of. So I started attending CODA here. It's held here a couple of times a week. And that really helped. And I did that right after I got out of Ridgeview.
How many people here have ever found your light in a 12-step program?
Yeah.
It's a good place to find God.
Yeah. So I started doing a number of things, and I've listed them here. I do a spiritual reading in the morning. Bill and I do it when we have breakfast together, and we talk about what we read and what it meant to us. And so I do that. I've found that exercise, as much as I abhor it, it really helps a lot. And so I swim. I call it my Zen swim, because I do laps, and I can just, you know, take all thoughts out of my mind and just kind of be with the water and enjoy nature. And now I get to swim outside, so that's really fun. And I'm an artist, so I express myself creatively, and I found myself not doing that at all when I was really depressed. I didn't even want to pick up my jewelry making supplies, you know, do any kind of painting or anything like that. So I found that that's real important. I have to eat healthfully, get plenty of rest. I don't take depressants anymore, no drugs or alcohol, anything that I think is going to make me sad. The big thing is that one thing Bill's reminded me is we as human beings aren't put on this planet to do life by ourselves. So I have tried to reach out to friends, even though I've been a little bit embarrassed about, you know, like I've judged myself about being depressed. Who wants to be around somebody who's like Debbie Downer, you know? And so it's been hard for me to do that, but don't isolate. The 12-step meetings I already talked to you about. Unity's been a real important part. Even though through my height of depression I've attended on Sunday, because I always felt a lift no matter what was going on from the service. And volunteer work is really important because it makes you get out of yourself. You know, once you're focusing on somebody else, it helps you not go into your mind as much. You know, they say that going into your head alone is a dangerous neighborhood. So I try to remember that.
One of the things that we talked about when we met was the changing of the question. The question you're asking is determining the quality of the experience. Anybody notice that why is this happening can be a very dangerous road to more suffering? And Deanna changed her question to who am I going to be? And some of the things that she's put out to you today seem like very simple, practical steps, don't they? Oh, get more sleep. One step at a time. And I think sometimes we think when we're digging ourselves out of a hole, out of a dark place, we think I have to have the answer. I have to know 10 steps in advance. Today, I'm going to go for a swim. Well, that doesn't seem like anything. Yet it is the step that is in front of you. And Scripture tells us that I will be a lamp unto thy feet, that the Word of God will be a lamp unto thy feet. And that is the small remembrance of the goldenness of her nature said, I'm going to go for a swim. That's the step I need to take today. Not the one I'm going to do 10 years from now, but the one that is in front of me. Share with my beloved find some place to go and to surround myself with people who have not forgotten and let them hold vigil with me. You know, we are called on this hero's journey to be present to each other, and sometimes the words get in the way. We are called on the hero's journey to be presence for each other. A person who can't find God might find it in just your ability to shut up, put your ears on, and hold them.
Yes. I'm not so good at doing this, but I'm trying to limit myself with social media because that can be a real downer, particularly in, you know, some of the political climate. The vitriol that is really, as somebody who is empathic, it can weigh my soul down a lot. And one of the phrases that I've heard people, you know, in a negative way say, "Oh, you're just hypersensitive," you know. Well, I heard this therapist speaking. She had a great British accent too, so she said it in such a nice way. But she said, instead of calling somebody hypersensitive or calling yourself that, which is more important, is I like to use a phrase, exquisitely sensitive. Yeah. So. And the other thing I try to do is laugh and not take myself too seriously. So there is one thing I'd like to read to you that I didn't do in the first service. And he doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I'm reading this story or this.
It's Unity North. I'm used to being out of control.
Richard doesn't know either, but Bill doesn't know it either. So this is, I met Bill at Atlanta Unity. Who'd have thunk you could meet your partner at Unity? But it was really a great place to meet someone because we share similar spiritual beliefs, and I believe that that's one of the most important parts of my being. And so I wrote this to him. It says, "This man has been with me through thick and thin, 4 surgeries and an emotional breakdown, uncomplainingly bathing, feeding, encouraging, holding me tight while I scream in agony, keeping the faith for both of us. 16 years of love unconditional and a bond that goes way beyond anything I could ever have hoped for. Dee, when I look at you, I don't see scars. I see who you really are." And so when I read this to Bill, I wrote this last year, but when I read this to Bill, he said with tears in his eyes, "You need to save that to read in my worst moments."
So here's a spiritual reality. We say all the time here, we belong to each other. And there's a part of that inside that, we need each other. We need each other. I need you. You need me. And that is not need out of any kind of lack, but we're in each other's experience because it's a divine appointment. And the God that we are seeking may have your face on it. The God that I am seeking might have Rainey's face on it at any given moment, or Sylvia's face, or Ray's face. I'm saying if you're feeling anything, be human and reach out. So what can we do for those that are reaching out? Just a couple of things, because I want to invite somebody else up here to share before we go into meditation. What can we do for somebody? First of all, we don't see them broken. If anything is more profoundly at the center of unity, is I don't see this beautiful being in front of me as broken. Bill, you did that. I see you as the magnificent Buddha. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that I'm pulling you into that place of light. I'm just being present for you. A phrase that I have used often, let's go ahead and put it up on the screen. When people have come to my office needing to be validated for their humanness before we could find the golden Buddha, I say, if you believe that I believe it is possible, then put your faith in me. I'll ask people, do you believe that you can get out of this hole? And they'll say, no, I cannot. I cannot believe it. I'm not there. But do you believe? Do you believe that Bill believes? Do you believe that your community believes that you will get to the other side of this? And they will almost 100% say, yes, I believe you believe it. then I say lean into my faith. Lean into my belief. Lean into my view, my heart, my spirit. You want to know why community is important? That's it right there. You want to know why community is important? That's exactly it. And if we have the faith of a mustard seed, like a Buddha that has just a small chip off of it, I will not give up the ability to see that there's something holy in there and to be present to that holiness. And I will invite in anybody who wants to participate in the chipping, not an attack of your humanness, but an embrace of your humanness and a recognition that at the deep level, the place of namaste, the place of oneness, you are that Buddha nature and it's never been lost. I want to invite one of our ministerial students, Vitalia Walden, to come up and to share something that she prepared specifically for today's talk. I invite you to open your heart to this expression and this experience.
There is a devil on my left shoulder. It tempts me, but not to zany cartoon mischief. Its temptation is fear, confusion, insecurity. This devil is convincing because it speaks in my own voice. You are not safe. You cannot survive. Come, hide from the world with me. It offers safety, and yet I know the devil's is an unsafe safety. I fear to look at it. I struggle to escape, but I need help. There is an angel on my right shoulder. I keep my eye on her. She will help. She will intercede. But her eyes remain closed. She makes no sound. Why won't she help me? So I let the devil hide me. I am safe, but I am alone. The devil attacks with an angry, shaking voice. You are not safe because you are worthless. You only make mistakes. Even the angel knows. And now you burden me with your frailty. I cry with my hands over my ears. No! The devil and I are caught in an endless screaming match back and forth. I cannot offer a coherent rebuttal. I cannot articulate why its argument rings with an untruthful truth. I still refuse to face my Savior turned warden. I struggle and squirm, a small frantic creature caught by a cruel child. But I do risk a glance at the angel, eyes closed, no sound. The devil, now a monstrous beast feeding off my despair, bellows. You will never be okay. Set me free. Wait, what? How is this my fault? I am disarmed. I have no energy left to struggle against it. I give up. For brief moments there is silence, clarity, an unrealized realization. The angel that I thought had abandoned me was guiding me with her actions. Be still. Do not struggle. Do as I do. Look and listen. I open my exhausted eyes, and I see that she is looking at the devil. Alas, the one thing that I have refused to do. I inhale deeply and turn my head to finally face my tormentor. The devil is monstrous, hideous, but I see that it is a beaten and wounded creature. No matter how misguided it might have been, it has taken the brunt of the world to keep me safe. Its body, my shield against Hamlet's slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Now the question isn't to be or not to be, rather who am I to be? The time has come for me to offer the devil safety. Not its misguided guidance of unsafe safety, but safety born of compassion, of healing. I look into its eyes and I find a depth and breadth to who I am. I learn the meaning of non-duality. I learned that a body, my body, my heart, my soul is big enough is strong enough to contain pain and love, beauty and beast, fear and grace.
We're going to go into an experience, but there's a couple of things I want to take into the song. Deanna mentioned a song that was very meaningful to her, and she said she was nervous to sing for you today, but I wanted her to sing this song because it contains much of what Vitaya just shared. The greater the question, the better the experience. Not why. Who am I meant to be? Who am I at a deep place? And the song is called Love is Here. Love is here. And there are angels with skin on, sitting on your shoulder, your left, they're in front of you, they're behind you, they may be in this very room right now, who are doing nothing except being presence for you. The presence of love. Love is here. The angels are here. Let us lean into each other and take this into an experience that'll start with a couple of songs and go into a meditation by our beloved Cecilia.